Hi, I'm Angela McKinnon. I am a graduate student at Arkansas State University. I am currently taking class 6193 under Cindy Nichols. The purpose of this video is to interpret the special education assessments for Virginia. Virginia is a 13-year-old female student that is in the 7th grade at Lewisburg Middle School in Olive Branch, Mississippi. She lives with her mother, her father, and twin brother. She was born 2 weeks prematurely but has not had any health conditions associated with that birth. She crawled at the age of 6 months, was speaking single words at 18 months, and was toilet trained by the age of 2. She entered kindergarten in 2010 in Shelby County Schools, and in February of 2011 was referred for special education testing. At that time, the difficulties that she was having she was not able to recognize letters and sounds, and was only able to recognize 2 out of 26 of the letters. She had difficulty counting and recognizing numbers, however she could count up to 10. Difficulty communicating with others, socializing, staying on task, and was easily distracted. In February of 2011, the first assessment was administered. The first assessment that was administered was the Berry-Buchanan Development Test of Visual Motor Integration, a paper and pencil test that assesses the development of the visual motor integration, the visual perception, and fine motor coordination. On this assessment, in the VMI, she scored a 75 and a percentile rank of 5, which classified her as below average. In the visual perception and the motor coordination, she scored an 85 with a percentile rank of 15, and she was low to average. The next assessment that was administered was the Vineland Adaptive Behavior Scales. This is a assessment that is ranked by the parent and a teacher. Virginia was ranked moderately to low in the area of gross motor and fine motor skills. She was significantly delayed on the communication skills and the socialization skills. The next assessment that was administered was the Wechsler's Preschool and Primary Scale of Intelligence. Her full IQ score was a 75. Her verbal IQ was an 81. Her general language composite was an 84, and her performance IQ was a 75. Her processing speed index was a 75. Compared to other children her age, Virginia's current level of overall intellectual functioning is classified in the borderline range. However, language deficits and difficulties in maintaining focus may have an impact on these scores. The verbal index quotient of the 81 put her in the 10th percentile rank within the low average range. When asked to define words, she often rambled and provided non-essential information, but she eventually demonstrated enough knowledge of the word meanings to score in the low average range. When asked to guess items when given verbal clues, her performance was very inconsistent, but her overall score was in the low average range. Weaknesses were indicated in verbal comprehension and long-term auditory memory or recall of general information. Virginia's performance index was a 75 and put her in the 5th percentile, which classified her as being borderline. When replicating block designs involving spatial reasoning skills, her performance was in the low average range. Her performance dropped into the borderline range on tasks involving categorical visual reasoning, abstract visual reasoning, and visual memory. Under the processing speed quotient, she had a score of 75 and was ranked in the 5th percentile and classified in the borderline range. On a 2-minute time processing speed task that involved visual memory and required the ability to work quickly and accurately using the fine motor skills, her performance was classified in the borderline range. On both this coding task and the symbol search subtest, she sometimes lost her place and appeared to have difficulty with visual tracking. Her general language composite put her in the low average range through tasks involving receptive language skills, on which she pointed to a picture corresponding to a spoken word, and expressive language skills, on which she was asked to provide one-word identification pictures. The significantly lower scores on the latter tasks seem to be at least indicative of the visual memory weakness that has been indicated. The next assessment was the wide range assessment of memory and learning. This evaluates the ability to learn, helps identify memory problems, and assesses attention and concentration skills. Virginia demonstrated mild weakness in short-term auditory memory, but her overall performance in this area was in the low average range and was ranked at the 21st percentile. A visual memory index could not be obtained because of her excessive guesses on the picture memory subtest, invalidating her score. However, her score does indicate weaknesses in visual memory for abstract designs. She also had most difficulty on tasks involving attention and concentration skills. The attention concentration index was in the borderline range and ranked at the 2nd percentile. She had particular difficulty with visual memory tasks involving sustained focus, concentration, and visual sequencing. The next assessment was an achievement test, the Woodcock-Johnson III. When presented with letters, Virginia was successful in matching 2 out of 4 dictated uppercase letters. From a list of random letters, Virginia stated the names of 1 out of 3 uppercase letters and 2 out of 4 lowercase letters. She produced the sound of 1 letter. She correctly matched pictorial symbols, but she was not successful in using visual clues to match basic words to pictures. She demonstrated basic writing readiness skills, but she was not successful in writing letters from dictation. When asked to print her name, she correctly produced the first 2 letters of Virginia. Other letters were reversed or unrecognizable. On the applied math task, she correctly raised the stated number of fingers. She rote counted to 10, and she sometimes correctly counted up to 3 picture objects. She correctly pointed to stated coins and to the clock faces showing stated times. She had a very limited success with number sequencing. Bracken School Readiness Assessment was the next assessment administered. This is a nonverbal screener that helps with concept knowledge that tests pre-K to 2nd grade. Virginia demonstrated inconsistent and limited mastery of school readiness skills on this test. Her overall composite was classified in the very delayed range and ranked at the 1st percentile. When asked to point to name colors in a set, her color recognition was inconsistent. She was successful in identifying 2 primary colors, 2 secondary, and 1 absolute, which is the color black. In response to dictated letters, she was successful in pointing to 4 out of 8 uppercase letters. She was not successful in pointing to dictated numbers. She had limited success in pointing to the correct picture reflecting size and comparative concepts. The next assessment that was administered was the Behavior Assessment System for Children. This is a rating scale that is completed by the parent and the teacher. Both of those rating scales indicated that Virginia had very low at-risk functional and communication and adaptive skills. The next assessment was the clinical evaluation of language fundamentals. Her composite score of the core language was 78. Her receptive language was a 77. Her expressive language was 83. Her language context index was 78, and her language structure was an 82. This test indicates that she has a language impairment disorder. The next assessment that was administered was the Behavior Assessment System for Children. And again, this is completed by the parent and teacher, and both observation scales were in range. According to the Tennessee Department of Education and the results of this initial evaluation, Virginia qualifies for developmentally delayed and a language impairment. She transferred in 2014 to DeSoto County Schools. They did a complete reevaluation, and they did an achievement test, the Woodcock-Johnson test, and she was in the very low function in all sections. Letter word identification was very low. She was a grade equivalent of kindergarten in 3 months. Calculation, she was a kindergarten 9 months, also in the very low rank. Passage comprehension was first grade level, and she was very low. And her applied problems was kindergarten first month, very low. The next assessment administered by DeSoto County was the Reynolds Intellectual Assessment Scales. This is individually administered to students ages 3 to 94. She scored an average functioning intelligence of 104 on the verbal, 105 on the nonverbal, and 104 on the composite. According to the Mississippi Department of Education and the results of the reevaluation, Virginia was given a specific learning disability of reading comprehension, basic reading, math calculation, and math problem solving. In 2015, she transferred to another school, Lewisburg Elementary. There, they did a language test and found that she had scored significantly low in the language, indicating a language impairment. So according to the Mississippi Department of Education, Virginia now had a secondary ruling of a language impairment, and her primary was a specific learning disability, as stated earlier.